On today's Locked On Texans podcast, big interviews for Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson. How does that impact the Houston Texans? And what are some of the bigger changes the Texans should be afraid of?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, Locked On Texans fans, listeners, and viewers across the nation to this Thursday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. A part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If this is your first time listening or watching the Locked On Texans podcast, thank you for stopping by. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you to all of our returning listeners coming back to listen and watch as Cody and I continue to talk Texans here on this Thursday. Normally, it would have been a crossover Thursday, but for the first time in a long time.
But it's okay, though.
Texans are not playing this weekend, so we are not doing a crossover. We're just continue to talk Texans here. On the show, I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. On the other side of the screen, as always, Sports Illustrated's own credential media member, Cody Davis. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use code all lowercase lockedonnfl for a first deposit match up to $100. Guys, today we're going to highlight Will Anderson Jr. He was named to the 2024 Pro Bowl. Big changes the Texans should be afraid of. We kick it off with interviews for Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson. Before we talk about that, I do want to mention that the Texans will not be bringing back defensive line coach Shazier. And that's crazy. I thought he'd be back. But Rod Wright, who the Houston Texans brought in last season, will probably take over for Coach Shazier. Cody, we talked about Coach Rod Wright when he got hired last July, and that's what I mentioned, how Coach Wright has come into every program he's been in, and that group has excelled. I don't know if you remember that episode. That was the July 3rd episode, and we talked about him. He's excelled in every place he's been in as a defensive line coach or coach in general. And as you know, the Texans broke their regular season record for sacks this year. So, assuming he's going to just step up, was brought in last year, one of the D'Amico Ryan's hires. So I'm assuming he'll just take over as a full-time defensive line coach, not be the assistant coach for the D-line. Now, Cody, Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson. Interviews for both of those young men. Let's talk about it.
Hey, this is part of the, I'm not going to say downfall, because look, this is what you want to see from a franchise, your franchise, for it being good. I understand that a lot of us, came to love the work that Jerrod Johnson has done. I understand that a lot of us came to love, even though he has had his moments, love and respected the work that Bobby Slowik has done. However, John, once the Texans started to change up their season, change up their program, and then now is definitely trending in a positive direction. This is part of what we're going to have to deal with moving forward. Coordinators coming in and out of NRG Stadium, but for a good reason this time. It's not going to be like last time when they got fired. No, they're going to be moving on to bigger and better things. And right now, man, it seems like Bobby Slowik is one of the hottest names in the head coaching searches, and Jerrod Johnson, who a lot of people, including you and I, thought without a shadow of a doubt that Jerrod Johnson would definitely just step in and be this team offensive coordinator if Bobby Slowik leaves. He is one of the top names on the market in terms of coordinators for Jerrod Johnson. He's a serious candidate for the New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles, which is a very important one because him and Nick Sirianni spent time together with the Indianapolis Colts. So that is a big one right there. Then you have Bobby Slowik. Right now it seems like his head coaching job is going to either be between the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington Commanders. Both of those teams have brought him in for a second interview. By the way, I love what the Atlanta Falcons are doing with their head coaching searches, because Bobby Slowik is, I believe, the third candidate to have a second interview. We all know that second interviews means that you basically got the job. However, Bill Belichick and John Harbaugh also both had second interviews, but they still kept
John
the
is
search going.
He's going to the Chargers, by the way. So
John is going to the Chargers.
Tough.
Man, the AFC, AFC is starting to look like the Western Conference back in the 2000s, when you didn't know who was coming out. But I think we really got to start looking at the possibility of the Houston Texans losing, if not just one of their primary quarterback, offensive coordinator, guys, possibly both. And like I say, it's bad when you start looking at like the relationships and everything that they develop, but at the same time, this is basically what you want to see. By the way, this is another reason why Coach DeMeco Ryans should be in the running for Coach of the Year and should win it. Why? Name me another coach that's going to have a coaching tree within his first season.
I don't know if DeMeco's going to have a coaching tree. I think we're a little ways from there, but
Bobby and Jerrod, they the first ones.
Well, Slowik came from Shanahan, and Johnson's been in the league for a while, Ronald Lee for a while.
You're right.
And I don't know if Johnson would be under, because he spent some time in Minnesota, didn't he?
Yeah, during that time, he spent it working with Kirk Cousins. That's what really put him on the map, because Kirk ended up having one of his better seasons working alongside Jerrod Johnson, and Kirk even talked about that.
The Cleveland Browns actually also had an interview with Jerrod Johnson for their offensive coordinator vacancy. And normally we will look at how this impacted Texans, and we will, but I definitely want to highlight how this impacts the men themselves, right? I think for Jerrod Johnson, this is his first real step of being a head coach, right? The coordinators, normally a coordinator first, you're a high shot young coordinator in the NFL. That's the trend now. And then once a head coaching job becomes available, now people are looking around the league and trying to figure out who's the next high shot that we can bring in, i.e. Bobby Slowik, who I also want to highlight and say that, you definitely don't want to see him go to a bad situation. But it looks like for Bobby, the situations that he is entertaining are the better ones in the NFL. You look at the Atlanta Falcons. Like if he goes to Atlanta, the number 8 overall pick,
they just need a quarterback. Honestly,
I just need a quarterback, and you got Kyle Pitts, an offensive weapon, Bijan, offensive weapon, Drake London, who's a decent guy, but I think he's also in the same boat as Nico Collins. Just need a quarterback to get the ball to him consistently. Then we'll see what he's able to do in his third year. So I want to give flowers to those young men simply because I'm calling them young men, but to Bobby and to Coach Jerrod Johnson, because it's good to see them have opportunities to expand their life, their family, their career, and get to the next level. And then how does that impact the Houston Texans? Well, for me, Cody, that falls into the bigger changes the Texans should be afraid of.
Me too.
I'll say that for the upcoming segment, because Houston does not, like you said, they don't want to lose both one offseason. Now that is where it gets scary. Passion, drive, patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. And what brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. To have the eBay guarantee fit your part. It's guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. Thank you for still listening and watching as Cody and I talk about the bigger changes Texans and Texan fans should be afraid of this offseason. And I think we're going to be right on the same page with this one, Cody. And I don't know how long I'm going to talk about it. Houston does not want to see both Bobby and Coach Johnson leave any same offseason. And I think was tricky right now, neither one of them has left yet. And there's a bigger probability that Bobby Slowik leaves. I mean, you don't want to pass up a chance to be a head coach, right? Unless unless it's a terrible situation and you want to wait. You don't want to pass up that head coaching opportunity. But he has some good opportunities out there. Now, so does Jerrod Johnson. And if I'm Houston, internally, I'm having a conversation. If I'm Nick, if I'm D'Amico, I'm saying, hey, look, all right, listen, guys. Bobby, are you leaving? You leaving? Okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. Go do great things wherever you're going. Hopefully it's in the NFC. Stay over there. Jerrod, blank check. What do you want? Here, write it down. This is what you want to stay. We're going to keep you to stay because that is taking away two very great life sources from your quarterback. Now, as great of a rookie season CJ Stroud had, right, and as great of a quarterback we all presume he'll be, you don't want to rob him of some of his resources too early. Guys, internally, I've been told several times off the record how great Rod Johnson has been for CJ as a quarterback coach, as a guy, two young African Americans, as a guy that's been relatable to him on so many different levels, whether it's playing wise, whether it's off the field wise, or just being able to relate to the young man while being able to coach him up at the same time. And so I think for Houston, it comes down to this. We need you. We understand if more opportunities come, because they will. If you attach your name to a great quarterback, you're going to always have a job. But we need you. Bobby is leaving. Yes, we have Bill Lazor, who, by the way, I think we need to look at, before I pass it over, I think we need to look at, we still got guys on his coaching staff that has been successful in the NFL, right? When Bill Lazor took over play calling for Chicago a couple years ago, they went on like a 6-game winning, not winning streak, but a 6-game streak of putting up 30 points. And that was some of the best football Mitch Trubisky had played in his career. Shane Day is also another guy, came over and has helped another previous former great quarterback in the NFL, a young quarterback over in LA with the Chargers. And so they got guys here on the coaching staff. But you're looking at two guys who has directly impacted CJ Stroud. You cannot lose both of them in one offseason.
And to prove your point and my point even more, this is what CJ had to say about how much Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson has helped him throughout his rookie season.
Yeah, Jerrod. I've known Jerrod since I was 16. I was in the Elite 11 with him. He was my quarterback coach there. And one thing, man, I can say about Jerrod, man, is like, when you talk about someone who knows how to play the position of quarterback and knows how to relay something, but also just a great person, man, a guy who loves football. He loves Houston. He loves Texas. He loves his family. He's a great family man. And somebody who's taught me just a tremendous amount of information. But on top of that, man, put a lot of confidence into me as well. Like when I was 16 at Elite 11, we did like this little like circle group. It was like all the quarterbacks in my group. And Jerrod's one thing for me was like, be confident. Because at that time, like I wasn't really the highest recruit. I wasn't who I will become, you know what I'm saying? And I always knew that it would be a possibility, but I didn't hear it out like those type of the Jerrod I looked up to, like he played at Texas A&M, I knew that, and stuff like that. And when he was like, man, you need to be more confident, like, and it was just like it changed my life, you know what I'm saying? And from there, like fast forward, I'm here with him my rookie year. it's been just a blessing to work with him. And whatever happens, man, I'm excited for him, and he deserves everything that's coming for him. And I'm super blessed to be able to work with him. And Bobby, somebody who, when I came in, man, I knew that he was going to push me hard. He was going to be hard on me. He held me at a standard all year, held me accountable. Because, I mean, a lot of times, man, when you're playing good ball, guys, they kind of like let you do what you do and like leave you alone. But Bobby, man, he was always on me about like the little details in my position, you know what I'm saying? And I appreciated that, you know, because you don't always get that. And he always just was hard on me, but also showed me a lot of love, man. A ton of love, very knowledgeable, can really dice the defense up, puts a lot of trust in his players, and really just never got away from what he knows. You know what I'm saying? Of course, like, tailored his coaching to like what was here at the Texans, but he did what was at the core of his heart, and I could appreciate that, you know what I'm saying? And but whatever happens with those guys, they deserve whatever's coming to them, and it's been a blessing working with them. But if they come back, that'd be cool too.
Well, since you and CJ, talked about the importance of what Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson has meant to him.
They was together since 16, man.
Oh yeah,
you can't lose them.
You can. Look, I'm about to flex a little bit. I already knew that because I'm working on a little CJ Stroud project. Talked to Jerrod Johnson one-on-one. That's something he told me, a couple of weeks back. But since you guys already talked about the important Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson already, had on CJ and on this team, man, my biggest thing is, what can you do and how are you going to replace them? And I know when people say that, it's like, okay, it's just the offensive coordinator, it's just a quarterback coach. You already know you have one of, if not the best up-and-coming quarterback in this league in CJ Stroud. You already have one of, if not the best up-and-coming head coach in this league, and Coach DeMeco Ryans. This team is talented on both sides of the ball. It's one of them situations where a lot of people might look at this and say to themselves, does it really matter who steps into that role as long as they qualify, as long as they have some type of knowledge of the situation and the players that they're working with? While that is true, it's still going to be very important for the Houston Texans to do their due diligence and see how are they going to replace, if not just Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson. And all you have to do is go and take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Look where they were this time last year, getting ready for the NFC Championship game, a game that they will win to move on to the Super Bowl. And if not for a couple missed passes and missed opportunities, they probably would have won another Super Bowl for this, second time since 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And what happened in the offseason? You end up losing your offensive coordinator in Shane Steichen to the Indianapolis Colts. You end up losing your DC to the Arizona Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon. You elevate two guys. Your offensive coordinator, you fired him midway through the season. And your defensive coordinator, you literally fired him at the end of this past season. And the Eagles did not come close to meeting the high expectations that we thought they was going to get. John, I don't know about you, but even when the Eagles were 9-1, 10-1, I'm still looking at the team like, man, something isn't really clicking. They don't look as dominant as they looked as the year before. And the biggest change that I saw from afar was the fact that they lost not one, but two very important coordinators on that team. And I look at the Houston Texans, and John, I agree with you, maybe behind closed doors. And of course, they can't come out and say that they are talking to other candidates, because as of right now, both Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson are still, under contract and stuff. And if the season was to start like today, both of those guys will still be on the field for the Houston Texans. However, I agree with you. Hold private meetings to see, okay, are you staying? Are you not staying? And if not, they're going to have to come up with a contingency plan to see who is going to fill those shoes.
And I think we got a little time. I just think a lot of people are looking, and I know Nick Caserio and I know DeMeco, they're working hard on making sure that they have all the tools that they need for this offense. But I'm seeing a lot of people look outside of the organization. And again, I'm thinking to myself, well, if you want somebody that has impacted, a young quarterback, you still got Shane Day right here on the roster, on the coaching staff, excuse me. And you look at what Shane Day has done in the NFL just recently, 15 years in the league, helped develop Justin Herbert, who was named as a Pro Bowler in his first year under Day. I think in the end of the 2022 campaign, Herbert completed over 1,300 passes, which is the most in NFL history through a player's first 3 seasons. He helped the Chargers offense be one of the best offenses in the NFL, right? He has a proven track record that he can help a quarterback, and also Bill Lazor. So they aren't the Shanahan tree that everybody has fallen in love with in the NFL. Shanahan. And by the way, when was the last time Shanahan got won something? I think it was Sean McVay. Kyle as he rests to bed when the game is on the line. Right, we've seen inconsistencies from Bobby Slowik, but in fairness to Bobby, this is his first year as a play caller, and I think that he will continue to get better, which is a big reason why I want to see both Bobby and Coach Johnson come back. Give yourselves time so when you do go out, you're the best out there on the market. But Houston does have a couple of guys internally that they may feel can step in and take over and do well with play calling. And they've had a year or two to kind of sit back and not have to call plays to do things from a different perspective, to get back to the coaching. 2 former offensive coordinators, now they was in the offensive assistant role. So now that's you guys. We can help coordinate the game. Don't necessarily have to call the plays. And so don't be in a rush to look outside the organization right now. This is also a Texans team that has done a lot of things, and those things have been kept internal. So that's the trend and theme of this franchise.
Well, what I
would
would
lose both of those guys in the same offseason. That would be a very unfortunate.
Well, look, sometimes keeping it internal doesn't work out either. i.e. the Philadelphia Eagles. Shane Steichen move on to the Indianapolis Colts. They elevate Brian Johnson from quarterback coach to offensive coordinator, and look where they are now.
Sometimes keeping it internal can either lead to a baby shower or a Super Bowl.
And for you, it led to a baby shower.
But Will Anderson Jr. That trade led Will Anderson to be named the 2024 Pro Bowler. We know the Texans season is over, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, if you are a new customer, FanDuel got something for you. Get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and much more. So, to my parlay partners out there and the parlay princesses, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a walk-in TD. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Thursday installment of Locked On Texans. Really quick before moving on, I do want to add this in. When you talk about the big changes that the Houston Texans should be afraid of course, we're just looking at the coaching staff. I do believe that Jacques Zier, the loss of him, might impact that team on the defensive side of the ball as well. John, remember a couple weeks ago, I did an article on SI about, the improvements that the Texans have made with their run defense. And from Coach D'Amico Ryans, Matt Burke, several players, a lot of them gave credit to Jacques Zier because, like Coach D'Amico Ryans always says, it starts up front with your defensive line. And I think Jacques has just done a tremendous job here during his time here with the Houston Texans. And look, I don't think it's going to be like a big impact type loss, but I do believe that the loss of him might impact this team in one way or another. But it's going to be one of those small impacts. It's not going to be nothing major. However, when you take a look at that defensive line, you can't go without talking about the emergence of Will Anderson Jr., who has been named to the 2024 Pro Bowl games in Orlando, Florida. We might as well say the first of many throughout his career. He was
he'll be
named
back.
he was named yesterday afternoon due to the injury to Max Crosby. He just finished up having, I believe, off-season knee surgery. So of course, Will Anderson Jr. was a replacement, but at the end of the day, man, to make the Pro Bowl in your rookie year, I believe he is the third player in franchise history to achieve that feat. It says a lot about his future in this league, especially for this team.
I loved it for Will Anderson Jr., but I also thought maybe John Grenard was a little bit more deserving to be the Pro Bowl.
Ooh, you think so?
Will Anderson got in over Max Crosby, who was having that offseason surgery, speedy recovery to Mad Max. Hey, listen, he's actually one of my favorite players I love watching. Like when I can cut the TV off and I ain't got to watch the Texans or the Patriots, if I can catch some of that Raiders game and just get past the offense and Aiden O'Connell playing quarterback, I love watching Max Crosby play that edge position. But that's how Will Anderson got in. And I thought, maybe John Grenard, contract year, balled out, 12.5 sacks. At one point, he was a top 5 sack getter in the NFL. I thought maybe he should have been named in. But shout out to Grenard. Shout out to Will Anderson. First of many, like you said, Cody, that young man will continue to get better and continue to make waves and impact. And again, once he gets to the level that John Grenard got to with adding pass rushing moves to his repertoire, he's going to be trouble.
True, man. As of right now, he is. And I say right now because whoever come out the AFC, rather the Ravens or the Chiefs, the quarterback not going to play. So it's only about a week later, we'll be saying the same thing about CJ. So we might as well get used to it. But as of right now, Will Anderson Jr. will join Laramie Tunsil as the two players representing the Texans. But look, it's going to be 3 because we already know where this is about to head because number 7 will be there too.
Oh, yeah. Thank y'all for listening to the Locked On Texan podcast this Thursday. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12 and follow the page on Twitter at Locked On Texans on Twitter as well.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Once again, it's Cody COTYDAVIS _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.